Hello, everybody, and welcome to Two Geeks and One Noob, where we gather friends of similar interests and maybe not so similar, and discuss, joke, learn more about, and generally have fun with geek culture. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and we're super excited about this week's episode. We're talking about Boy Meets World.
Yay!
So, we're talking about how much we loved it as kids and how much we still love it as adults.
Yep.
I just started watching it again last week and got a couple of episodes in, and I'm like, huh, it already made me cry. So, what were some of your guys' favorite parts of the show?
I mean, I had touched on it a little bit in the last one that we did, but Eric Matthews just had so many great moments throughout that series, and just the sneak attack episode is by far one of my favorite moments in all of Boy Meets World. Just the hilariousness of him like diving on an actual trained military soldier, and be like, "I'm going to sneak attack you," and just getting flipped over. Like it's just so funny. That one was great, and there's so many good moments with like FEE-HEE-HEE and just the lessons he teaches, and also just like Sean was always a fun character because you never really fully knew what he was going to do, but you always knew it's like, all right, the moral compass is there. Just how late is the moral compass going to be on this one?
Yep, definitely. I also think it's funny how with Eric, like he started out as a typical like teenage boy, like always going after the girls and kind of that good older brother kind of and bad older brother kind of thing too. But then later on in the seasons, he ended up getting kind of realizing what his character should have been and like been more on that real dumb, stupid, like funny, but still good big brother kind of thing.
Well,
I don't know if that was necessarily planned. I think that was something that kind of changed over time because they saw like how well that actor did with some of the more comedic aspects of it.
Yeah.
And like there was that one episode in the earlier part of the series where he was like freaking out trying to prepare for a test, and just the like goofiness he was doing throughout that whole thing. I think that was when they kind of realized it's like, okay, like he's got his comedic chops and we can do something kind of fun with this character. And so I think that was more changing the course and less the plan the whole time.
Yeah.
Kind of like the April and Andy dynamic in Parks and Rec. Like that was never a planned thing. They just had the one episode, saw how much chemistry they had, and said, oh, well, screw that. We'll just got to keep going with this.
Yeah. And I'm glad they did because like Eric, like even throughout the beginning of it was one of my favorite characters. But as soon as he got into the that comedic side of things, it was just like, oh, he's like my favorite actor ever. But
I think
it's just he had that like comedic timing done really well for that character.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The slapstick, the stupidity, the
But I mean, even through maybe our own family relationships or watching other families where there was that very explicit older brother, younger brother dynamic, did y'all watch that happen? It play out either Dan in your life or Caleb in a friend's life, where the older brother at one point was the absolute antagonist of your friend's life, and then towards the end of high school, the older brother became the role model of like, no. He's already pointed out the potholes I don't need to do, and he's also shown me some ways that I can have a ton of fun while being adventurous. So,
yeah, I mean,
or at least give us the fodder for all the awesome stories. Like, holy cow, that was weird.
Yeah, I mean, my relationship with my older brother definitely had some similarities, but not quite the extreme that was in the show. I mean, my brother's not like the dumb person like like Eric was, but but you know, I did learn from some of his mistakes, and some of like he taught me a lot when I was growing up, and we had a good, you know, older brother, younger brother's relationship, especially as I started getting a little older. So it was pretty cool.
I think all younger siblings at some point in their life think their older sibling is dumb.
Well, yeah, of course.
No comment.
It's because you are the older sibling. I own it. I'm dumb. I know it.
No, I'm not.
I thought you were the oldest. So that's my bad.
I am the dumb one. I am the young one. Both are true.
The younger and the dumbest.
Nope.
It's a new soap opera. The Young and the Dumb.
Oh gosh.
You can just go on social media for that. Don't even need the TV time.
Yeah.
Sad but true.
I think another fun moment is just, I guess, like some of the like dynamic between like the trio of Corey, Sean, and Topanga, and just their back and forth, and kind of seeing how they interact. And it's like Corey, like Sean and Topanga, like they always like respected each other and liked each other, but they didn't really have a ton of just like that one-on-one time to kind of get to know each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was always like either in a group setting or they had one-on-one time with Corey, but not each other or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's like you didn't really ever get to see that dynamic, and it's like just the glue of Corey kind of holding everything together.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was, I feel like we got just a little bit later on in the seasons of like seeing how their relationship changed, and like a lot of times it was either you're taking my best friend away or, you know, that kind of thing. But then there would be that moment of like, oh yeah, no, you're really what's best for him. And like, you know, there's that mutual respect, like you were saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty cool. I also have to say one of my other favorite things about the show is the relationship with the father with the two sons, because like I said, when I started watching the show again over this past week, it was the first couple episodes. There's a bunch of really good relationship stuff between the father and the sons, because like there was that episode of where the dad was trying to spend more time with Corey because he was working a lot, and the grocery store was taking up a bunch of his time, and ended up getting Corey up in the middle of the night to watch a baseball game.
Yeah.
And FEE-HEE-HEE got all upset about it and like failed him at the test and stuff like that. But then at the end, it was just like both of them kind of realizing like the other side of it, of like the dad was like, no, I need to take time out of my work to spend with my son. And FEE-HEE-HEE was like, yeah, no, you need to have those times of spending time with your son, even if it means, you know, sacrificing
Work,
sleep
where's
or
the priority. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. What's the priority there? Is it family or is it work?
Yeah.
Or is it school?
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, those are a priority to begin with, but time spent with family is the most important thing.
Yeah. And I think it's one thing we hit on in the original sitcom episode that gave us this idea to do this full episode to the show. But the fact that the morals, the ideas, they weren't just focused towards the kids who could identify as the younger sibling or that awkward kid in middle school going into their freshman year of high school. It wasn't just dedicated to the core trio.
Yeah.
So sure, you had them, and they were by and large the largest part of the story. But you had those moments like what you're describing, where it's also kind of okay, now for the people around your life, this one's for them.
Yep.
Sit down. We're going to show the sandbox scenario of what happens.
Yeah.
For better or worse in some cases, because I seem to recall quite a few with oh shoot, blanking on the kid's name.
Which
Best
one?
friend.
Oh, Sean.
Thank you. Yeah. There are a few moments with Sean's family where it's like, oh, that's
Yeah, there's some deep stuff in there with his very broken family.
Yeah.
And his relationship with his teacher and his like the people around him, because he didn't have his father or his mother around to teach him
Consistent
life lessons.
Yeah.
But then his teachers and his friends and all that came around him to be that support system, and it's really cool. It's such an awesome show to showcase life lessons for everybody, not just kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like 2 of the episodes that stand out, or that I remember the most, were actually episodes around Corey, where one of them, I think, is whenever his dad just completely bailed on something. I can't remember the exact premise, but the idea was where Sean and his dad come alongside, like, no, come on, yeah, you're missing the time with your dad, but no, that doesn't mean you can't have something to look back on today.
I think it's the other way around. I think it was Sean's dad that was missing. Or
what did I say?
You said Corey's dad, but I think it was Sean's dad,
Corey
and then
Matthews, Sean.
Corey and his dad took in Sean.
Yes.
Yeah,
brain fart.
I knew what you meant the whole time.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah.
And even their dynamic of like taking Sean in, and letting him live with them for a while.
That was the other
his
one.
dad.
That was the other episode where that finally happens, where it's like, nope, you've been around this family long enough. You are family.
Yeah.
If you need a place, you live here.
Yep. Which, isn't always possible, but
yeah,
it's cool when it is possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's so many good episodes that you can think back on with like the relationships between Corey and Sean, Corey and Eric,
Corey and
Topanga. Yeah. So like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of some moments that like really stick out to me with any of those, because like the whole what was it, SeaWorld episode, where she is she breaks up with him. And like, I'm sorry. Before that was the skiing episode, or skiing episodes, I think it is, where they go up to the mountains and go skiing, and he spends the night talking to this girl, the girl that works there, and she ends up breaking up with him because she thinks that he needs to like go off and figure out his life and what he wants out of the relationship and stuff like that. But then it comes back and they go to a SeaWorld type thing,
Busch Gardens or whatever.
Yeah, some aquatic thing, and
there was a park for like one of the Disney parks, if I'm remembering correctly.
It? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember which one it was, but
that would make sense. Yeah.
But yeah, they come back to each other in that episode, and it's just like you can go through a lot of things and figure out what your life is like, and realize that who you love is who you love, and
Yep.
Yeah, I just love those little things that they showed in that show that was just like, yeah, that's like what I want my life to be like. So,
I remember like later in the series when after they had gotten married and were starting their life together, and that dynamic of like the parents were like, we love you, we want to help you, but you chose to get married. You chose to like do this now.
Yep.
And you didn't plan ahead. And now you've got to figure it out. You've got to grow up very quickly and figure out what you're going to do.
That is a heartbreaking episode.
That is a very tough episode. Like, I couldn't imagine being a parent in that position, being like, look, we love you and we have always got your back for some things, but like, you wanted to be an adult. You have to be an adult now.
Yep. And then like the show actually showing them sitting back, like after they had just talked to them and been like, you know, they're crying and having having a broken heart because they couldn't, or they chose
couldn't help
not
out.
to help them grow. And it's just like, ugh,
Well,
it hurts.
it does, but I think it illustrates that point of some lessons are better. Some lessons you have to learn the hard way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And they're better learned for having been learned the hard way.
Yep. Absolutely. And then
Yeah, and like you saw that like that kind of like waning in their family relationship for a little while, but then you saw the relationship come back towards the end of the series where it was like stronger and better than ever at that point. But yeah, there was definitely that like trial period where they're just Corey was understandably unhappy with his family, but they were also like, this was your decision. Sorry.
Yep.
And then, of course, we have to talk about Morgan, the sister.
She's a great character.
You mentioned it in that last episode, or not the last episode, but our sitcom episode, where it's just like she was gone for like 2 years. It was like, yeah, I've been grounded for like eight years.
It was just so funny. It's like
breaking
that was
wall.
one of, if not the best way that they've done a recasting of an established character in a TV show.
Yep.
Just the idea was just like, oh, she was in her room grounded forever because she said a really terrible word. And it's like in that episode, she was like, what? That's ridiculous. That's shorter time than I got grounded for saying. And then it's like the long bleep. And they're like, go to your room. You're grounded again. It's like, oh, come
on. Nice. That must have happened at the end of the episode.
Yeah, that was like right at the end of the episode.
Yeah. It just reminds me of what is it, Last Man Standing?
Yes.
When they recast the sister,
the middle sister.
The middle sister, yeah.
Yep.
And it was just like, wow, you look different.
See, I didn't like that one because it felt a little too hand-fisted. Like it was
that's what
too
that whole,
on the nose.
Yeah, that's what that whole scene was about, though. Like they did that throughout that whole episode. It was like, this is different, this is different, this is different. And they're all acknowledging it. It's just like,
yeah, and it's like, it's fine to acknowledge it. I feel like there's that balance with it. And I think like my issue with it in Last Man Standing was that like in recasting her, they just decided to really like amp up the stupidity of the character like tenfold.
Yeah.
And so it went from like, okay, she's kind of dumb, but she's driven and she's putting in the work, to it's like, I just got lost upstairs in the house you grew up in your whole life. What? Come on. So like that was my issue with it in Last Man Standing. It was just a little too much. Whereas with this one, like they acknowledged it and they're like, people are going to notice, they're going to comment on it. So we'll do our one joke and then we're done and we'll move on. Whereas they had like that ongoing joke in Last Man Standing for the entire episode.
Yeah. To be fair though, like the whole thing with Eric amping up his stupidity, it was almost the same thing. Like I could see Eric saying, I got lost upstairs.
But he still had his moments where it was like, okay, I'm dumb, but I also know what I'm doing and I step up to the plate when I need to.
Yes, of course.
Whereas like she was just like dumber than soup in that episode.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. And I was just thinking about other side characters that kind of stood out but weren't. I mean, they had their own episodes where they had their moment in the spotlight. But the one that comes to mind for me is Minkus.
Yep, Stuart Minkus.
Yep.
It's Minkus, right? It's Minkus.
Oh, so funny. It's just like, Minkus, tell me it's Minkus. It's Minkus. Just, and Feeney's like taking Feeney's fun away. It's like, oh, it's Minkus.
Yep. And even he had some very
astute observations.
Well, I was going to say even redeeming moments, because like
absolutely.
He was always the almost too smart for his own good kind of character.
Yep.
But then every once in a while he'd have his moment of like, no, I have feelings too. You know,
Yeah.
like
I'm not just a brain and a body.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It was like he had Topanga was smart, but she had the social awareness, and Minkus didn't have that same social awareness that she had.
Yeah.
Well, granted, like the first season, she definitely didn't have the social awareness, but she kind of like grew into the social awareness.
She
over
had the
time.
spiritual awareness.
Yeah.
That the the interpretive dance.
Oh, gosh. Forgot about that.
Yeah, when they're doing the presentation, and she's like, "No, read this." And it's like a poem, and she's doing the interpretive dance and rubs
right.
the lipstick all over her face.
Yeah,
Which was revisited in Girl Meets World, which was awesome. I thought.
didn't watch it.
Mhm. Yeah, like Topanga's character just goes through a lot of like development and ups and downs throughout the whole series. It's just like it went from like that weird chick that was kind of funny and like weren't quite sure how to like react to her to like just such a core member of the group and developed and written so well. And like she was written well in the beginning too, but like it really improved as a character developed more.
And she's basically a Hermione Granger, but her plot arc is drawn out a little bit more.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, kind of going back to Minkus, like, what was I going to say about it? It was
I remember in the tail seasons, didn't he end up going to like MIT and starting to spin up his own company at the end?
I mean, they touch on that in Girl Meets World, where like he is running a multi-million-dollar,
which fits
corporation. Yeah, and then his son is always wanting to take over the world. But I don't remember if that was anything of Minkus. Was that anything that Minkus did too? I can't remember. Where he was like, he was going to try to take over the world.
I don't remember trying to take over the world specifically. I do remember the class project one where they had to kind of like do the timeline thing for their future and where they were going to be when they got older and whatnot. And he had this plan for like the major corporation and whatnot. I don't remember the full details because it's been a little bit since I've seen that episode. But
yeah. Gotcha.
Larry Page, take note. You're Minkus' son, not Minkus.
I do think it's funny how they mirror some of the storylines from Boy Meets World into Girl Meets World, where one of the very early episodes with Minkus was he wanted to be one of the cool kids, and so he completely changes his look to look more
hip or goth
hip,
or whatever.
yeah. Well, it wasn't goth, it was more
he's trying to like emulate Sean.
Yeah, pretty much, with the baggy clothes and the backwards hat and all that kind of stuff. But then in Girl Meets World, his son does the exact same thing with some of the same exact lines of like Stuart Minkus, regular guy, where the son Farkle says Farkle Minkus, regular guy, but he changes his name. But yeah, it's really funny how they do it, but it still works,
Well, it was like showing that respect and appreciation for the source material.
Absolutely.
And it's like, had they done it in a way that they were mocking or just trying to imitate without showing that respect and love for the source material, then it wouldn't have had that same appeal.
Yeah.
Whereas showing that same love and appreciation for it, it came across in a way it's like, we're doing this, we're reusing some storylines, but it's because we love the stories that this came from.
Yeah.
And we want to twist and tie those stories into what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And it's also, I've not watched Girl Meets World, but that would make sense because a lot of the premise behind especially the first couple seasons of Boy Meets World, was the parents passing on lessons they learned when they were young.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're seeing
Corey and Topanga
do this. From what y'all are describing, it sounds like you're seeing a lot of the same interaction happening, where it's Corey and Topanga passing on the lessons they learned when they were young.
Yep.
So it just makes sense that they would have to pay that respect to it to keep the storyline accurate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was also going to say, like, it's also a lesson in, if you don't learn from the past, you're doomed to repeat it. And a lot of times they were doomed to repeat it because they didn't learn the lesson from their parents. And then they went back and were like, the parents were like looking at each other like, yeah, we know exactly what's going on because we went through it.
Yep.
And the same exact thing. So it's like, wow, that's so cool.
I think one of my favorite episodes was where they set up the random wrestling match in the gym. It's like Corey joined the team and he was the only person in their weight division. So he was joining just to be like the jock kid and didn't even have to like compete because he was the only person in his division. And then all of a sudden they're like, all right, no, we've got someone else to in your weight division. So you actually have a match. And he was like, I joined this whole thing because I didn't have to compete. And they're like, well, no, you've got a match. And it ends up being one of the other bully kids that just, even though it was older than him, happened to be in his same division. And just the whole back and forth. And like he beats the bully kid easily. And then they go into like the whole back and forth. It's like, no, we're going to set up another match after hours in the gym. And like they have the full line like wrestling ring and they bring in Vader from WWE or WCW. Like he's like throwing people around and FEE-HEE-HEE jumps in and is like, put him down. And it's like this guy that is like 300 plus pounds and just a mountain of a human is like cowering in front of FEE-HEE-HEE.
Oh yeah. Speaking of the wrestling, what did you say his name was? Vader?
Vader, yeah.
Yeah. He was in it quite a bit actually with his
he had a handful of episodes that he was in because his son was Frankie.
Yeah. Both of those.
And so like he was I can remember 2 episodes off the top of my head that he was in.
Yeah, because there was the one where Corey was trying to go between the dance and the wrestling thing to try to help him help the father with the moves and stuff because they were trying to because they knew a lot about wrestling, so they were able to like say, oh, look out for this move or things like that. So but then he was trying to get back to the dance with Topanga. That's one of the ones I remember.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that one. I mostly remember the full-on wrestling episode and then Vader showing up with Frankie and the younger brother. Those are the 2 big ones that I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, and those were a couple of characters too. The excuse me, Frankie and that other bully that had another one of those arcs that was
it Joey?
Oh yeah, Joey. The oh my goodness, the one that's always in leather.
Yeah, so it was Frankie, Joey, and where's the...
Oh, because there was a third one at one point, but then...
Well, he was like the Griff. He was the boss guy that like tried to act like the... oh no, Harley Kiner. He was the...
Harley, that's right.
Yeah, he tried to act like the like 50s style kind of guy with the way he talked and everything.
Yep. The greaser type.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the Fonz wannabe.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah,
not as cool.
Yeah. But their story arc was pretty great too, because they were bullies, but then like Frankie definitely came around a lot because of Corey trying to help him out, and then like getting closer with his dad as well, because he was more of the lover, not the fighter. And
right. Well, he's like there were several episodes where he was doing like poetry type stuff.
Oh yeah, yep. That's how he talked. Like he like his way of talking was very poetic. So like it was very strange to see him like even though he was like a bigger guy, like with like he looked like a bully, but then when he talked, it was like completely different.
Well, I think them commenting on his appearance versus his soul,
Yeah.
like that was a talking point that they brought up a number of times.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was pretty good. And then Harley, I don't remember if they actually did a full arc with him coming around, or if that wasn't until Girl Meets World that he was kind of like.
He didn't really have a turning point in that main series. Like there was that point he was trying to like get into the fight with the new bully that kind of took over his position.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And he like backed down and just kind of left it as it was. And he had a few moments where he'd like back off and leave it. Like when Corey was dating his sister briefly, and they, like he would back down and kind of learn from that. And then a few other moments like that throughout the series. But yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't remember him in Girl Meets World. It's also been a long time since I've watched that one, and I only watched it the one time. But
he was the janitor.
Oh,
that tracks.
Well, yeah, no, that was kind of the point where like he decided to, be the bully his whole life and not make something of himself. So, like, nothing against janitors, obviously, because they're. But like that's the connotation, though, is like, janitors are stereotypically known as the lower, job type.
Yeah,
but like.
And now all I can think of is scrubs.
Well, I feel like that was something that they kind of like leaned into in Girl Meets World too. Was just like, it was like, you can judge me because of what I do for a living, but like there's a whole life from before this that you aren't aware of. Just ask your mom and dad.
Right, exactly. But then also he kind of justifies it a little bit more too, to be like, I get to be, around these kids that need somebody to look up to, or to, to be a warning sign almost too, like if, I went through this whole thing and I need to be a role model for people. And yeah, exactly. Thing, yeah. So yet another lesson learned that,
which is awesome that they would turn him into that sort of a character. Because I mean, what I remember of him, is just towards the beginning of the college years, they start really emphasizing that point of he's completely rethinking his life to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So that really does pretty much track.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, another another topic in the show that I really liked was the teacher. I can't remember what his name was. Like, I think it was like
Feeney.
No, not Feeney. The quote unquote cool teacher that would teach out of comic books.
Oh.
Shoot. I'm trying to. I think his name was like Mr. Thomas or something like that. But excuse me.
I'm looking it up. That's going to bother me.
Yeah.
Yep. Jonathan Turner.
Turner. Yeah, that's what it was. Yep.
Turner.
So yeah, Mr. Turner was the one that would teach out of comic books, and Feeney would get mad at him for it and stuff like that. But then yet another one of those moments where Feeney was like, "Yeah, no, this isn't good," but at the same time, it's getting to the kids. It's relating to the kids and meeting them on their level, which was really cool. But then he was also the very much like motorcycle, almost greaser kind of style person as well. But yeah, just a cool guy that knew how to relate to kids, and I always liked that because that was very much my style of like youth leading at church and stuff, was try to relate to them as well as much as possible to gain their trust, So
yeah.
Well, like the dynamic between him and Sean, I always thought was really cool.
Yeah.
Just that like mutual respect, and it's like, okay, like I see a little bit of myself in you, and that's not always a good thing. So I'm going to try and steer you down a little bit of a different path than what I had to go to before I got to where I am.
Yeah. It was kind of.
I mean, he was kind of the father figure for Sean, wasn't he?
A little bit,
or at the very
Little
least,
bit,
he was for Sean what Feeney was for Corey.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
For a short stint, because he was. It was weird because I was just about to say that, like, it was kind of a disappointing arc in some ways because, like Sean ended up living with him for a short stint, because they thought it would work well together, and the teacher was like, yeah, no, I need to take care of this kid because he's got a rough home life. But it ended up not working out so well because of basically they were getting in each other's way of life in some ways, and it was like it was like I said, it was disappointing because they didn't fully fall into that trust of a father figure type style thing. So I don't know. It was interesting.
Yeah.
They just kind of like came to an end and didn't really like have a full on wrap up. Like there were some slight wrap up moments when Sean was moving back in with his dad later in the series, and they kind of had a little bit of a back and forth, and it was like, hey, like if anything changes, if anything happens, like keep your key, my door is always open. But
Right, yeah.
then it just kind of ended and didn't really go anywhere else from there.
Yeah, like I said, kind of disappointing. It was almost like the actor was done with the show or something, and they were like, let's wrap this up in a quick way, you know.
Well,
Yeah, and like the actor didn't do a whole lot else with the show after that. Like he was still present, but he definitely didn't have the same screen time that he had up to that point.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say the actor was also a bit part in Pulp Fiction.
Was he?
I think so. I seem to recall him being related to that, seeing him in that at one point.
So maybe it was just a.
So it could have been he was going to other acting gigs or something else. I don't know. Could have been a scheduling conflict. Yeah.
Yeah. I know they did bring him back for Girl Meets World though. He was the superintendent, I think. Superintendent of schools in that area. But
yeah, he was, and it looks like he wasn't in it a ton.
No,
it looks
it
like
was
he was
like
only in a handful of episodes. But
yeah, basically, like he was in the episode where they did the same thing where the teacher taught from comic books, and he was like, the principal was trying to get the girl fired for doing that, but yeah, the superintendent was like, yeah, no, this is a good way to teach. So.
Yeah, like, and he would know. He's got that experience on that teaching method. So it's like, if anyone's going to know if that works or not, it'd be him.
Yeah.
It's kind of slow your roll. I know what I'm doing.
But I will say there were a handful of moments that stood out where it was almost like they were writing it expecting it to be the final episode. I remember one exchange between Sean and Feeney in the Matthews backyard, where Sean is trying to get into community college, or a community college, or a full 4 year, one or the other. But he turns in the his entrance paper to Feeney to grade. And Feeney's remarks, something along the lines of, well, I will say your argument is actually much stronger than it has been in the past. But the only thing I can really fault you on is the whole thing is one long sentence. And he hands back like these 5 pages of an essay.
Nice. I don't even remember that one. That's funny.
I don't know why that scene stands out.
I feel like that would have been me.
That was definitely me.
My mom was an English teacher. Nope.
I've got this really long, good essay of a conversation argument, but it's all one.
It's all one long run.
One long run-on sentence.
Real passionate debate argument there.
Yes, of course. Well, I think that will about wrap up this episode. And if you're enjoying our show, please share it with your friends and family. We'd love to hear back and see that you guys are enjoying our show. But to close out, I would like to just echo a sentiment from FEE-HEE-HEE-HEE. I love you all. Class dismissed.